Hello, good morning everybody. So today we are going to have a different outlook towards drama. So far we are seeing different ages, different periods in history. But today we are going beyond this time period. We are going to see a type of drama which encompasses time, because it is not restricted to a particular period of time. So it is titled Problem Play. The problem play is a form of drama that emerged during the 19th century as part of the wider movement of realism in the arts, especially following the innovations of Henrik Ibsen. So what we can say is that it started in the 19th century. It was a part of a wider movement called realism, especially in arts, not only in drama. This realism was even in painting and all that, like Michelangelo and all that. It deals with contentious social issues through debates between the characters on stage, who typically represent conflicting points of view within a realistic social context. So here you find drama coming from heaven down to earth. That's what we call realism. They are trying to portray human life as it is. They are trying to expose human problems or social problems. So sometimes they are very controversial. There could be opposing opinions. So maybe a conflict between what is right and what is wrong. So social evils maybe. So that kind of dramas which are dealing with human problems or social problems. It of course it started with Henrik Ibsen, the great playwright. Here contentious means actually controversial. Critic Chris Baldick writes that the genre emerged from the ferment of the 1890s. A ferment stands for the spirit. So it started emerging, coming out of the spirit of the 1890s. For the most part inspired by the example of Ibsen's realistic stage representations of serious familial and social conflicts. So actually this kind of problem drama or problem play started with Ibsen's realistic representations of human problems, especially family and also social conflicts. He summarizes it as follows: rejecting the frivolity and intricately plotted romantic intrigues in the 19th century French tradition of the well-made play, it favored instead the form of the problem play, which would bring to life some contemporary controversy of public importance: women's rights, unemployment, penal reform, class privilege, in a vivid but responsibly accurate presentation. So what is realism? It's an explanation for that. So first of all, it rejects the frivolity, means silliness, and also intricately plotted. Intricately means very complicated. So romantic plays were mostly related to the courtly life, about knights, such kind of heroic episodes where you find the heroes are given superhuman powers and all that, and mostly the stories were rather silly. So it is trying to reject that kind of plots, especially that is based in on French tradition and all that. They thought they were well-made play and all that, these romantic plays. But it favored instead the form of the problem play, which would bring to life some contemporary controversy of public importance. Contemporary means of that particular period. Controversy means, of course, a kind of issue which may not be acceptable to everybody. So, you take the example of abortion. It is a controversial problem because some think there is nothing wrong with that, or even euthanasia, mercy killing. It's controversial, or even same-sex marriage or homosexuality. These are all controversial issues because some say it is okay, others will definitely oppose it. So such kind of issues are called controversial issues. So this kind of problem plays are trying to expose this kind of problems faced by society or family. So such some of the examples of problems are here. Women's rights, of course, those days equality of women were something new. Women were trying to find their place at that time. Then there was unemployment, then penal reforms of legal area, then class privilege, like the haves and have-nots, the powerful and the powerless. So they were all trying to picture or depict these problems very clearly and responsibly. That is what the problem play was trying to do. The critic F.S. Boas adapted the term to characterize certain plays by William Shakespeare that he considered to have characteristics similar to Ibsen's 19th century problem plays. So this particular critic, according to him, even Shakespeare's plays are problem plays, some of them, not all, because some of the plays were very similar to Ibsen's 19th century problem plays. There's a lot of similarity between Ibsen's problem plays and Shakespeare's. So he considered some of the plays of Shakespeare as problem plays. As a result, the term is also used more broadly and retrospectively to describe any tragic comic dramas that do not fit easily into the classical generic distinction between comedy and tragedy. So here there is a kind of important point. That means we had a clear-cut division between tragedy and comedy, but later you also find some dramas have got both tragic as well as comic elements. So we call them tragic comedy. So these tragic comedies were also termed as problem plays. Now we come to Shakespearean problem play. According to Boas, he used the term to refer to a group of Shakespeare's plays which seem to contain both comic and tragic elements, that is tragic comedy. They are Measure for Measure, All's Well That Ends Well, and Troilus and Cressida. So these three Shakespearean plays are also termed as problem plays according to this particular critic. He wrote that throughout these plays we move along dim, untrodden paths, and at the close our feeling is neither of simple joy nor pain. So the reason for these three plays to be termed as problem play is because after watching these dramas, at the end we don't know whether we really feel like crying or laughing. So these dramas are taking us through some mysterious, strange ways. So that's why we cannot call it as either tragedy or comedy. So according to him, these three plays are problem plays. We are excited, fascinated, perplexed, for the issues raised preclude a completely satisfactory outcome. So while watching these dramas, we feel excited, we are fascinated, perplexed, surprised, for the problems raised prevent any completely satisfactory outcome. That means we cannot find a solution. A solution for the problem is not actually easy to find. That's why the problem will remain a problem there. So the dramatist or the playwright is not giving a solution through that drama. They are really trying to expose a problem to the audience. That's why he called them problem plays. Later critics have used the term for other plays, including Timon of Athens and The Merchant of Venice. So these plays were also added to problem plays. While social debates in drama were nothing new, the problem play of the 19th century was distinguished by its intent to confront the spectator with the dilemmas experienced by the characters. So social debates were definitely part of drama. It was nothing new, but in the 19th century, the problem play was trying to confront the spectator. That means trying to throw it before the audience. The dilemma. Dilemma means a problem out of which you cannot easily escape. So the idea behind this drama is to expose the problem, and maybe it is up to the audience to find a solution. The playwright is not actually giving an outright solution to the problem. The earliest forms of the problem play are to be found in the work of French writers such as Alexandre Dumas, who dealt with the subject of prostitution in The Lady of the Camellias. So here one French writer called Alexandre Dumas, his subject was prostitution in his play titled The Lady of the Camellias. Other French playwrights followed suit with dramas about a range of social issues, sometimes approaching the subject in a moralistic, sometimes in a sentimental manner. So after this Alexandre Dumas, you find so many other French playwrights following him and trying to bring out social problems, similar problems. Critic Thomas H. Dickinson, writing in 1927, argued that these early problem plays were hampered by the dramatic conventions of the day. So according to this critic, these problem plays were actually hindered. That means actually they were having some kind of problems because of the dramatic traditions of the day. That means people were not ready to change. So that really became a problem for these problem plays. No play written in the problem form was significant beyond the value of the idea that was its underlying motive for existence. So according to this critic, problem plays were not very important beyond the idea that was presented by that problem play. So every problem must have presented a particular social problem. Beyond that, the drama was not very appealing. That's what, even in its form, it was not actually not very appealing to the literature as such. So no problem play had achieved absolute beauty or a living contribution to truth. So according to this critic, the problem plays failed to achieve maybe artistic beauty or a living contribution to truth. That means they were not able to present reality as such. The most important exponent of the problem play, however, was the Norwegian writer Henrik Ibsen, whose work combined penetrating characterization with emphasis on topical social issues, usually concentrated on the moral dilemmas of a central character. So another well-known writer, playwright was Henrik Ibsen from Norway. So he had some of the plays which had real characters. Penetrating is very deep. So some of the characters are multi-dimensional, not just one dimension or two dimension. So he was able to present his characters more realistically, almost like what do you call Shakespeare. And he also emphasized important social issues, social problems. Usually, the dilemmas of a main character, the hero, where he finds himself faced with certain issues out of which he cannot escape, or he cannot solve that problem. In a series of plays, Ibsen addressed a range of problems, most notably the restriction of women's lives in a doll's house, that is the topic, and sexually transmitted disease, STD or VD, in Ghost, and provincial greed. Provincial greed means actually power, power hungry people. Province means actually almost like a district here. Maybe like provincial is almost like a mayor of today. So it's about people who are fighting for power. So that is the topic in An Enemy of the People. Ibsen's dramas proved immensely influential, spawning variants of the problem play in works by George Bernard Shaw and other later dramatists. So Ibsen was such a great playwright. You find after him, so many others are following his footsteps. And spawning means actually producing or multiplying variants. Just like our coronavirus is having variants, different type. So like that you find Ibsen. If Ibsen is a virus, you find so many other people coming after him with a lot of variants. That means he really influenced a lot of other playwrights later. But they all, of course, presenting a problem play, maybe in different style. And you have another great person, George Bernard Shaw, who also focused on problems, social problems. 20th century. So from 19th century we are coming to 20th century. So I told you problem play is not restricted to a particular age. It is spreading throughout various centuries. In 20th century, the genre was especially influential in the early 20th century. In Britain, plays such as Houghton's Hindlewakes in 1912 developed the genre to shift the nature of the problem. So here you find a kind of shift in the problem in the play titled Hindlewakes by Houghton. This resolutely realistic problem play set in domestic interiors of the mill town Hindle starts with the problem of an apparently seduced woman, but ends with the woman herself rejected due to her status as a victim of seduction. So here this play Hindlewakes is focusing on problem of women, how women are exploited. I hope you know what is meaning of seduction. Seduction means trying to force woman for sexual favor. It's kind of exploitation. Today we find that almost every day you get news on TV that a woman was held in captivity and raped for so many years together, because the fellow is promising to marry her. So she will believe him and then live with him without marriage. Recently, one event that happened in Ernakulam. One boy was caught by the police and all that. So that is an example of seduction. So you promise a girl to marry and then cheat her later. After using her, you throw her out. So that is the theme of the play here. The woman is seduced by man and then at the end she is rejected because she is a victim of seduction. The problem is not, after all, the redemption of a betrayed maiden's tarnished honor, but the readiness of her respectable elders to determine a young woman's future for her without regard to her rights, including here the right to erotic holiday enjoyment. Here you have a very crucial topic discussed here, which is relevant even today. Here you find a woman who is maybe raped and kept in captivity, and then she is rescued. People are trying to help her, okay, and maybe her parents. Later, how does the society look at her? She is a bad woman, right? And then everybody is trying to protect her, maybe trying to lock her up in a room and then denying her basic freedom. So that is another exploitation. Just because she is exploited, she lost her image, she lost her virginity, chastity, everything. She lost everything. But then the society is trying to protect her. How? Denying her freedom. So is there a solution? That's what he is asking. So when a woman is treated like that, he is again further harassed by the society and her own people. That's what we find even today. The victims of rape again further exploited and tarnished by society, the police, the judiciary, and everything. So this is happening even today. It's very clear. So this is the problem that he is trying to tell the people, that her own people, the elders, maybe the parents, trying to decide things for her later. That is still worse, is it not? So the victim will remain a victim all the time. That is what is happening. So this Houghton's play is very relevant even in this century. In America, the problem play was associated with the emergence of debates over civil rights issues. Racial issues were tackled in plays such as Angelina Weld Grimke's Rachel. So in America, we had a different issue, that is the problem of civil rights. Even today you find the problem between the black and white. Lot of harassment. Even the police beating up or even killing the colored, the blacks. So that issue was there for a long time. Even now it is continuing. So the racial discrimination, that is the theme of Angelina Weld Grimke's Rachel. It was a tool of the socialist theatre in the 1920s and 30s and overlapped with forms of documentary theatre in works such as Carl Creed's Paragraph 218 in 1930, which concerns the issue of abortion and which was directed by Erwin Piscator. So problem play also focused on social issues or even socialism. You know what is socialism, right? That's why it is called socialist theatre in 1920s and 30s. And we also have got another form of theatre that's called documentary theatre. Now, documentary theatre is actually where the plot or the play is based on maybe a newspaper, a news item. For example, you saw just this week, you find a boy and girl locked up in a room, and this girl was missing for 10 years. And we cannot believe that. How could that happen? A girl locked up, staying in a room for 10 years without anybody's knowledge. So we can make a movie or drama out of that. That's called documentary theatre. You are making a story out of the news. That is realism, right? Realistic theatre. So problem play is like that. They are trying to present a problem that is in the society. And this Carl Creed's play titled Paragraph 218 was actually based on a rule or a law passed in Germany regarding abortion. That's why it is called Paragraph 218, which is dealing with clinical abortion. So that was a kind of issue at that time, rather a controversial issue. In Shakespeare studies, the problem plays are three plays that William Shakespeare wrote between the late 1590s and the first years of the 17th century that we have already seen: All is Well That Ends Well, Measure for Measure, and Troilus and Cressida. Shakespeare's problem plays are characterized by their complex and ambiguous tone, which shifts violently between dark psychological drama and more straightforward comic material, tragic comedy. So Shakespearean plays which are named problem plays are actually tragic comedies. You have elements of both tragedy as well as comedy. Some critics include other plays, most commonly The Winter's Tale, Timon of Athens, and The Merchant of Venice. They are all termed as problem plays. The term has been variously applied to other odd plays from different points in Shakespeare's career, as the notion of a problem play has always been somewhat vaguely defined and is not accepted by all critics. So the problem play itself is a problem, because nobody has clearly defined what is a problem play, because every play, every drama will have a problem, isn't it? So in that sense, we can call all the problems, all the dramas are problem plays. So this is a kind of problem, or lack of clarity with the very term itself, how to define a problem play. So many people say many of the plays of Shakespeare are actually problem plays. Some may not agree with that. So the debate goes on as long as there is clarity with regard to the definition of a problem play. Here we have the pick of Henrik Ibsen, the playwright. And then we are ending the class with a beautiful picture there, and one word is printed there, and I want you to find out the meaning of that word, bardolatry. I am not going to give you that. Please find out the meaning of that word. Maybe in the interaction time I will ask the meaning, so please find the meaning of that word. So wish you all the best. Have a nice day. Thank you.